Currently, I am sometimes struggling to know what games to cover specifically. Breath of the Wild is usually a safe bet to please everybody due to its popularity, but I also enjoy talking about the older games, especially Twilight Princess. The sequel, however, is a tough one. There is a lot of demand to discuss it, but at the same time I don't want to oversaturate the channel with that, as it will mostly be guessing games and speculation, which don't get me wrong, I do love. I just don't want to overdo it. I recently put out a poll asking you guys exactly what you'd like to see, and across a whopping 14,000 votes, 55% of you said Breath of the Wild 2. So to follow up with that, we will be discussing the sequel, specifically due to high demand. What unused concepts from the first game could appear in the highly anticipated sequel? Oh, and before kicking off the video, be sure to drop a comment at the end of the video with what unused concepts you would like to see. I'll be reading and replying to as many comments as possible. Now, be sure to go grab yourself a snack or drink and send them in to get featured right here, and let's get into it. Before we look at our first concept, for those that might not know, Breath of the Wild had tons of unused ideas, so many that Nintendo made 2 DLC packs for the game, but there were still so many untouched ideas that instead of a third DLC, they began going for a new game, the sequel to Breath of the Wild. Obviously, this new game won't 100% be built on unused concepts, but it does originate from that area, hence why we can expect some of the unused ideas to be seen. Let's get into it. Our first two concepts come from this image shown off at a private Nintendo showcase, which revealed some of the first game's unused concepts, notably messing up Link's arm, which we'll get to soon as there is a lot to say about that, but let's start off with the broken Master Sword. This is an idea that I've heard a lot of fans bring up, but little do many know that it was an actual idea put forward, and to some degree it kind of got in the game with the whole malice corrupted sword, but not fully broken. The Blade of Evil's Bane is an insanely crucial part of most Zelda games. It's like the key to defeating evil. While it's not required in Breath of the Wild, most games do require it to some degree, most notably Twilight Princess, where it's stabbed clean through Ganondorf. And given that this Ganondorf has been strongly connected to be the same, or connected exactly to the Ganondorf of Twilight Princess, I feel the Master Sword will have a more key role in the sequel. My first idea would be that this Ganondorf is the very same, and he has learned from his past mistake, and this time around actually attacks the Blade of his Bane, Evil's Bane, breaking it or corrupting it to stop what happened in the past happening again. We actually see a shot in the second trailer which could indicate this being a thing, but it's not clear enough as to where this malice is actually attacking. To me, it looks like the Master Sword, as we can see the handle right there, but it's not certain. If not that, any other hurdle in the story that causes the Master Sword to literally break would be a bloody epic plot twist. The sword is viewed as almost indestructible. Breaking this blade could potentially change the entire lore of the series going forward, and a change as drastic as that is very welcome in my books. As for the hand focus concepts, we have a lot to say here. We know that these have 100% developed into something 100% in the sequel, Link's new hand. The concept here shows a more mechanical, energy-based hand, and in the sequel trailers we see a more natural but also energy-based hand, both on Link's right arm. It's clear there is a connection here, and the look is obviously developed into more of an energy-fueled thing, perhaps due to something in the story with who the hand is. That just happens when ideas develop, but the core is still there. And the possibility of seeing these hand mechanics is definitely still in the cards. We see this sort of claw shot thing on the full art, but that could just be the docked version of the flying grabber thing here, very similar to the beetle grabber in Skyward Sword. We also see a cannon feature which launches bombs out of it. This would be pretty cool and likely add more distance to throwing bombs like in the first game. We see a grappling hook which would also be really cool and bring back a little bit of traditional Zelda vibes like the Wind Waker in Skyward Sword, and who knows, maybe we'll use it to traverse from island to island. There is a hammer, which is pretty self-explanatory, but I feel this one would work extremely well for small puzzles or triggers to open doors. Small, but simple. And we also have a bow and arrow setup. Not sure how necessary this one would be given we already have these, but maybe it has a specialty feature that we'll need. All in all, I think that we can confidently expect this hand to feature its own abilities that will help us throughout our quest. We already know it will have something to do with traversal, seeing as Link walks through this solid island with the green hand, so what's to say it won't also have some helpful tools, like the ones seen here? I'd put my money on it. Those first two concepts are really cool, and before we get to our third, I thought I'd bring up some of the concepts that I don't think will feature. They are pretty well known, so I figured I should at least mention them and give my thoughts, you know, before I receive some comments saying, what about this one, what about that one? You suck. Anyway, firstly, the freaky enemy ideas. Personally, I think these are done and dusted and just won't fit in as they look here. Maybe we'll see some enemies derived from these sketches, similar to my thoughts on the Master Sword breaking and the arm ideas, but I doubt it personally. Next, the Minish. We know that the long-forgotten Minish people from the Minish Cap were conceptualized to be in the game, but for unknown reasons were cut out. I think that ship has sailed, and I can't really see how or why they'd now show up. Despite wanting them to, and even talking about how they could in previous videos, I just don't see it happening now. Lastly, Link's family. In creating a champion / masterworks, we see artwork of Link's family, and as heartwarming as this would be, I just don't personally see the game going in a direction to allow this. Maybe I'm wrong there, hopefully I am, but I'm doubtful of all three of these concepts. Thirdly, intergalactic spaceship battles. Okay, maybe not quite that extreme, but there was official concept art and even test footage of Link battling a spaceship. There was also concept art of an astronaut Link. Now, I know what you're thinking. This should be in the concepts we won't see section of the video, but there is a good reason it's not. This concept may somehow tie into the final pick, so consider this as a predecessor to my actual final pick. We saw a concept of Link looking up into the sky and seeing a spaceship. I have no idea what they were smoking. I have no idea how this came to be, but honestly, I like it. I don't think that this would ever directly make it into the game, but I think it may have lit the path or had parts of the idea stem into my next, and true, final pick. Ganon Island. Like the first two concepts, this was also shown off at a private Nintendo presentation, and we see a floating island, presumably ripped up from the ground below, made evident by the hanging roots, with a magnified shot of none other than the King of Evil himself, Ganondorf, atop this grand island. We don't know many details behind this idea, but I find it hard to believe that what we see in the second trailer for the sequel to Breath of the Wild with Hyrule Castle is not connected to this idea. It has to be. Obviously one is a castle and the other is more of a mountain, but aside from that, both are rising from the ground in association to Ganondorf, evident by the malice spewing out from deep below. You know what else is deep below? Ganondorf. I don't doubt that this concept has perhaps developed into whatever is going on here, and if that's true, maybe we're going to see some sort of Hyrule Castle takeover like in Twilight Princess, but with a Ganon's Castle from Ocarina of Time look to it. I'd love to see a floating island under the absolute control of Ganondorf. This would be like his paradise. No, not that kind. This kind. Just imagine if the final showdown took place here, and we have to venture through a transformed Hyrule Castle, now under the control of Ganondorf, battling through hordes of monsters and traversing a malice-flooded cauldron of a castle to reach Ganondorf. Then, as the final battle commences, the island begins to rise more and more into the sky, higher and higher, possibly travelling through time as we take on the King of Evil in a grueling battle of the blades, ending with us knocking him off as he falls into oblivion, down into the gaping hole below Hyrule Castle, and the island then descends back into place, putting a seal down below to contain any remnants of evil remaining. The way I visualized all of this in my head is extremely epic. I can't really show you the visuals I saw, but I hope I worded that well enough to get the idea across. I really hope that Ganondorf's Island becomes a reality, as that would be an incredible spectacle to not just look at, but also take on. Thanks a ton for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, be sure to drop a like and consider subscribing for more fabulous Zelda content. What unused concepts would you like to see in the sequel? Anything from this video, or maybe another one? Leave a comment below and look out for my replies. As always, a huge special thank you goes out to all of my supporters across Patreon and YouTube. If you'd like to join them and get yourself a shout out upon joining and your name at the end of every video, then consider supporting. Again, thanks for watching, and until the next time, I've been Hyrule Game.